Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Always scaling the heights of greatness. This is the Great Debaters Contest, and I am Austin Nyumbok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. We have Nairobi County Giants, Sunshine School, going versus Strathmore School, and they're debating whether multinational companies should be held liable for any human rights occurrences that occur anywhere in their supply chain. We'll have them come to the stage now. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes.
It's official, people. Netflix is in Kenya. Netflix is a company, a multinational company that is. According to the Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English, a company is an entity having legal personality and is therefore able to own property. Multinational is when it has subsidiary companies in multiple countries. If my history serves me right, and oh, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe it does, human rights abuse is the violation against basic powers of free action inherent to all human beings. A supply chain is a series of processes, organizations, people, etc., involving the movement of products from the supplier to the consumer. Right to life, right to gender equality. I have one, you have one. I am now going to give you some examples of companies that have been known to violate such rights. According to laborrights.com, in Nepal, 8 union leaders between 1989 and 2002 were killed because of contesting company labor practices. Hundreds detained, tortured, and even killed for the same reason. Nestle Ghana hired 109,000 child laborers who work in the coffee farms under hazardous conditions, long hours, low pay. Walmart. This is the largest multinational company to date, with over 5,100 stores and hundreds of thousands of employees. It has a track record from sexual discrimination to worker forced labor. Just imagine that lady who is discriminated. She is a sister, a niece, an aunt, a daughter. For God's sakes, people, she's a mother who has to provide for her children. Her male counterpart is given a larger paycheck just because he's male. Ladies and gentlemen, now call me Humphrey Gare because I have made my stand clear. Thank you.
Sunshine School will hear your opening statements. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Brian Mukairo from Sunshine School, and I'm here to oppose on the motion. He who makes an assertion without knowing whether it is true or false is guilty of falsehood witness. Abraham Lincoln wrote this as a letter to the letter of Gazette to Illinois in 1864. Native Indians in Burma jumped at an opportunity to make cash when Ulukan, a county, set up operations in their locality. Ulukan, a coal mining giant at the time of establishment, brought about a drop in unemployment levels, bringing them down from 80% to 30%, or as you wish, an increase of employment to 50%. However, 6 years after, the local residents and miners started complaining of why the company was set up. They say that they released harmful gases that brought about a health hazard. The company was taken to court, but eventually, the natives knew that they were the ones who ran for the job to get cash, to increase the infrastructure. So due to their ignorance, the Unokal still continues to run up to date. As the Swahili saying goes, msiba wa kujitakia hauna kilio. As we all speak now, all that glitters is not gold. I'd like to pose a question to you all. How sure are you that that bottle of soda that you just drank is straight from Coca-Cola? How sure are you that that Dasani right there that you're drinking is straight from Coca-Cola? How sure are you that that pill, that Panadol pill that you take to soothe your headache is from GlaxoSmith? Multinational companies operates and starts in order to make maximum profits. Other companies take advantage of the laxity due to companies like KEBS not being involved in the right works. Counterfeiters bribe the officials in order for their products to get into the shelves. If an organization which is entitled to the same quality of a product as such as food and medicine fails, then is it the problem of the multinational company? Thank you.
We'll now hear rebuttals. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
2 weeks from now, I'll have to shave my hair because of one simple reason. My hair has to go off. The points that my opponents have given are like my hair. They have to go off. You see, there's no possible way you can tell me that these companies are taking advantage of us and yet go ahead to say that the companies shouldn't be blamed. You gave an example of India. You know, this company knew what it was doing. It knew it was taking advantage of these people. So basically, what I'm saying is that most of the times, if not all the times, these companies know what they are doing. Jessica, my sister, nice, soft, sweet, and tender. You see, Jessica always wanted to get a job. Then one day, she finally landed this deal with this famous multinational company. 2 fortnights later, Jessica is on night shift. The next morning, my mom and I are called. My sister, Jessica, dead. You see, Jessica died from suffocation due to poor working conditions in the company. You see, there are certain marks of finesse we expect from these countries, from these companies. You see, according to the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, these companies ought to respect human rights. They have to ensure that their conduct does not infringe on human rights. So recently, I'm watching Chichopevu, then I see this thing. 13,000 people, over 580 households from Uhuru Bora constituency in Changamwe. They were affected by lead poisoning due to this iron smelting company that had been set up in that area. In fact, this company was also in India. This company gave the same devastating effects to India. And here I stand. I'm speaking for Jessica. I'm speaking for myself, Kennedy Ndwati. I'm speaking for all those people out there who have sisters like Jessica. I say it's time we put an end to this impediment. It's time we take care of the elephant in the room. I say it's time we stop this violation of human rights.
Sunshine, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
Law is a defining factor. Law is a defining factor, and also law is the factor. That's the words of J.R. Lewis from his famous book, The Law of Action. Alex Babu, Sunshine Secondary School. First of all, in 2003, the World Trade Organization introduced a law in 2003. Get that? The World Trade Organization introduced a law which makes multinational companies, which even want to enforce human rights, or who are even thinking of enforcing human rights, not to do so because there's no basic concrete structure of which to form them. Get that? Second, the policy also deters the member states from putting a ban on importing goods whose production and supply involved violation of human rights. So whose fault is that? Not the multinational companies, but the international law structure. My first opponent here said many points, but I would like to disagree with them because, you see my tie? See it very clearly. I will not have worn it if there was no law telling me that a school student must wear a tie. If you see a student without a tie and there are no laws in place, it's not the student's fault. It's not. It's the absence of those laws or the complexity of those laws or the poor structures of those laws. My second opponent said that my first friend's hair should be shaved off, but may think his whole head should be cut off. Let the multinational companies continue to reduce input and maximize output, because those are the people who are helping other people. Let me ask you, who puts foods on your table? Is it human rights? Because you have the right to food, will food be placed on your table, or will this help you? Get that right. Multinational companies are not to blame. Thank you.
The audience has posed questions to the two teams. The proposers have been asked if they do not feel that HR managers are sufficient to deal with human rights abuses within multinationals. And the opposition have been challenged on whether they feel that treaty obligations for multinational corporations should prevail over human rights. We'll have them respond. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
To answer my friend's question in the audience, the HR managers are part of the multinational company, hence part of the problem. They are the ones that should be responsible because they use corruption and lies instead of doing their jobs. Now, moving on to my first point, who said that multinationals are the only ones to blame? I didn't. Humphrey didn't, and he defined the terms. Duarte didn't. Even the motion doesn't. This motion does not state that multinationals are the only ones to blame. They say that they should be blamed because they do bad things. They're the ones that pour oil on your oceans and kill your children. So they should be blamed. But then there are a lot of other people to be blamed. But they abuse your rights, they have a share of the blame. Moving on. My name is Stephen Mwindi, and I personally love water. My favorite brand of water is Dasani, mostly because of that name. It just rolls off your tongue, Dasani. And also because it's part of the Coca-Cola company, the main manufacturers. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the Coca-Cola company has a lot of skeletons in its closet. The main one, and the juiciest one, being a little town called Plashimada. Plashimada has one main well that they use to acquire their livelihood. Now, the Coca-Cola company came to Plashimada, a little town in India, and said, no, that water you have in that well that you need to live, that's ours. No. So they drained 1.25 million liters of water from that well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a well, okay? It's not a lake or a sea, it's a well. 1.25 million liters is a lot of water. There was barely anything left. And what was left, get this, just to add insult to injury, that water was contaminated by chlorine and bacteria. I personally suffer from stomach ulcers. It is excruciating. I cannot even tell you how many times, how many nights I have spent doubled over my bed in pain waiting for the pain to stop. Now, imagine all of that being caused on a whole town, all because someone wants to make a profit somewhere. That's not right. Do you think it's right? No, it's not. Someone needs to be liable for this. Someone needs to be liable for the pain caused by this. And who else but Coca-Cola? Now, ladies and gentlemen, now Ladies and gentlemen, think about what I just said. The next time you're sipping that beautiful Dasani bottle, are you drinking water or the tears of the hundreds of people that suffered to make it?
Sunshine, we'll hear your response to the audience. You have 3 minutes.
Before I begin, I would first like to address the fact that I think it was the second proposer that said a group of people got lead poisoning from iron smelting. Now, I think KLB Chemistry Book 1, page 32 is printed wrong because lead is plumbum and iron is ferrum. Okay, now on to answering that young lady's questions on treaty obligations for multinational companies should prevail over human rights. We're not saying that. We're saying over the years, treaty obligations have advanced while human rights have stayed the same since 2002. I myself am an activist for human rights. At the EAC trial against Rwanda for the violation of human rights, I was there. And to tell you the truth, the UN Global Conduct, the UN Global Compact, and the UN Code of Conduct hasn't evolved since the year 2002. Transnational companies must have knowledge concerning human rights imposing. That means that if the transnational companies know what they're doing wrong, then they can get away with violating any human rights. So who we're blaming here is the UN, and we're blaming the states for not being able to update these human rights. One thing I've noticed is that the UN and most states continuously fail to address the matter of human rights violations. And they continue to blame multinational companies for these human rights violations. Because the multinational companies are an easy target. Every time they do something that isn't completely stated in the UN Charter, people go after them. And guess what? The multinational companies win. And whose fault is that? The UN, the states. You can't possibly blame the multinational companies for violating human rights when you haven't stated the human rights that should be violated. Now to go, I would like to leave you with a quote. Hast thou forgotten that thou art sons of philosophers? Hast thou forgotten that thou art sons of healers? Hast thou forgotten that thou art sons of warriors? But one thing thou must never forget is that thou art humans. Do you know who wrote that quote? Me. I wrote that quote.
We'll now hear closing statements. Strathmore, you have a minute.
My hair shall be going anytime soon. Because the points that my opponents are giving us are still like my hair. They have to go. You see, we are also mourning with you. We believe the UN should be blamed. In fact, we believe the government should also be blamed. We also believe that the people should be blamed. But then we also believe that the multinational companies should be blamed. You see, it's wrong for everyone who was involved in a mistake. It's wrong for people who are involved in a mistake to get away. Well, every business dream is to be multinational. And if these companies become multinational, who else shall cater for the human rights abuses? Who else shall cater for the things they do apart from themselves? And I say that these 3,000 people who are affected by lead poisoning ought to get their justice. And I say that Jessica ought to get her justice. A moment of silence for Jessica.
Sunshine, you have a minute as well for your closing statement.
My fellow people, this is not even a matter worth arguing for. Because, as you all know, we are the right ones. Why is that? Well, let me tell you. My opponent just said that multinational companies are blamed. I don't think they should be blamed at all. Why is that? If there's no Bible and you committed sin, will God be right to punish you? No. Why? There's no Bible. My fellow opponent has just said that his ears are paining from hearing our points. But us, we want our points to penetrate his ears. Why? He didn't listen. I said in 2003, the World Trade Organization introduced a law which hindered multinational companies from enforcing human rights. Why? Because there's no basic concrete structure on which to base it on. So get those right. He also said that multinational companies are responsible for the death of our children. In last year's Garissa attack, did Coca-Cola kill those children? No, it was the terrorists. And as I finish, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Those are the words of Ronald Reagan to Mikhail Gorbachev. And these are the words of Bernard Alex Babu to Strathmore. Tear down your points because they are not worth arguing for.
Humphrey, that was a fair start. And I'm speaking because, Strathmore School has also been, debating for quite some time. That means you have had the privilege of really learning from your predecessors, when we use that word. So it was a fair start. You're very confident. But I would urge you to let us feel the discriminations when you speak about, examples such as Walmart and the rest. Don't just generalize them and say there were abuses on human rights based on, gender. Kennedy, I wrote here, what a start. When you talked about your hair has gone off, I thought, was it on at first, Or does hair go on? Those are questions I was even asking myself here. So, what did you mean? So I didn't get it, and you still came and repeated it when you came back. Stephen, what is the evidence of the flashy murder that you gave about, of the example that you gave? You never quoted a source. We needed to hear that. So for me, when you come and talk very hard about a company, a very big company in Kenya, and even in Africa and the globe, and you don't even give an evidence at all, I think this is hearsay. And all the best to the two teams.
I think for Sunshine, other than Ishmael, who tries to, push the debate further by saying, if it's not multinationals to be blamed, then these are the bodies or the agencies that should take responsibility for violations of human rights. But that comes a little too late. The rest don't seem to either have understood the motion or have prepared enough to be able to articulate, whatever it is that you're saying. This goes for the two teams, that every time you give certain pronouncements, that you allude them to sources, that you refer to sources, so that if anybody wants to challenge that, then you have documented evidence that you can then use to support whatever it is that you're saying. All the best to the two schools.
We'll go straight to the numbers now. Strathmore School, the judges awarded you with 65%. Please give them a hand. Their opponent, Sunshine School, the judges awarded you with 63%, making Strathmore School our winner for today.
Congratulations to the two teams, and we'd like to thank you, our viewers back home, for watching. Urge all the members of the audience and our viewers to follow us on our social media platforms at Great Debaters EA for Twitter. I'm Austin Nyambok.
And I'm Mariam Bishar. We'll catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.